Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our theme this week of royalty. So, we're going to be diving in and looking at 5 new words for you to help you expand your vocab and improve your comprehension and creative writing skills. As always, make sure you have a pen and paper, make sure you're scribbling down these words, practice the spellings, practice using them in sentences, and we'd love to see your comments below as well. So, I'm going to dive straight in and get started with you quickly today. So, word number 1 that we're looking at is the verb ascend. So, this can kind of be used in different contexts. Generally, ascend means to go up, but in the context of royalty, it normally means kind of like stepping up into a higher position. So, if we're using it in a sentence, we'd say something like, the young prince was getting ready to ascend the throne. So, what that means is he's sort of, he's waiting essentially for the person above him, normally as the case may be, pass away. And then that will mean he's then stepping up and he's going to become the next king. The second word is the noun dynasty. So a dynasty essentially refers to almost like a bit of a family tree, like a line of people going back. They come from a line of royalty. So kings and queens will have children who then become the kings and queens, who have children who become the kings and queens, etc., etc. So quite often you'll learn in history about periods of time where maybe certain families ruled for a century or so. But of course, with history, we know that changes with wars and invasions and things like that. So if we were going to use dynasty in a sentence, we would say something like, the Ming dynasty in China was known for its cultural achievements and technological advances. Okay, so the next 2 words we have are quite similar in meaning. One's an adverb, one's an adjective. And I want to talk about how we can use them differently in sentences, despite the fact they're quite similar in meaning. So the first word we have is the adverb imperially. So this essentially relates to, remember, adverbs describe verbs, like the way we do things. So imperially reminds us of empires almost. So it has connotations of people or countries that have got a lot of power over certain areas. So, for example, if I was going to use it in a sentence, I would maybe say something like, the palace was decorated imperially, showing off its opulence and grandeur. So this idea that you can imagine from that sentence, there's this big palace which is kind of maybe full of things from all across the empire and all over the world, and it shows its power and its connections to all these different places. So imperially normally reminds us of empires, whereas our next word, word number 4, is stately. Now this is more of an adjective. And again, this relates to this idea of something that's grand and impressive, but it's more maybe sort of used in the sense of having a grand or dignified manner. It doesn't necessarily relate to the idea of imperially. For me, I would put imperially up here in terms of power, and then maybe stately would be a little bit below it. Because a state, of course, is just sort of one country or one area, and an empire can be a huge range of countries in different places. So if I was going to use stately in a sentence, I'd say something like, the stately mansion was sat on top of the hill looking down over the valley. So stately is often used in the concept of describing buildings and things. So in the UK, we have lots of stately buildings that over our history, these big sort of mansions and castles and things have been built. So stately is a really good way of describing those buildings. Okay, and the last word we have is a verb abdicate. So to abdicate essentially means to step down or give up your position of power. Now normally as well, this is referring to royalty. So maybe a king or queen kind of steps back and lets somebody else come in. Now, generally in history, this is pretty rare. There's not many occasions where they've done this, but it's a really great word to learn because you do sometimes hear about it, sometimes in the news, even now in modern times, and also when learning about history. So if I was going to use abdicate in a sentence, I'd maybe be referring back to a famous bit of history from the 20th century and say something like, King Edward VIII abdicated the throne so that he could marry a woman that his family did not approve of, which is true. So he basically stepped down, gave up all of his royal responsibilities and power so that he could, go do his own thing. And then that's how then another monarch came in after him. Okay, so well done for learning these 10 new words all relating to our theme of royalty. Make sure you put your comments in the box below. Have a go at doing these sentences. We'll be picking our winner as usual on Friday. So far, we've already had 4 winners that we've been sending out prizes to. So we're really excited to be picking a new winner this week. Also as well, don't forget, if you want to come behind the scenes and work with us and learn more about this vocabulary, practice it. We're going to be testing you on it as well in our live interactive quizzes that we do. Then make sure that you come and join the 11 Plus English Club. All the details are below, and you must use the code YouTube11, and that's going to get you half price on your first month of working with us. We look forward to seeing you in the club. Take care and have a wonderful week.